أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين حبيب إله العالمين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد صل على وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الحكيم وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. I begin in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. It's due to that kindness and mercy that we get these opportunities where we gather in remembrance and glorification of Him, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We're going to go back today and discuss the letter that the Imam alayhi salam wrote to Malik. There's still some material that I want to finish before we close this chapter, and it might go for another 2 or 3 Thursdays, inshallah, but we'll save it for Thursday nights. And we'll try to finish it before the Hijjah starts, when the busy month once again starts. But there are a few points that the Imam alayhi salam mentions that are worth discussing and for us to understand. Now, if you remember the last place that we left off, the Imam alayhi salam instructs Malik on who he should select as counselors. In other words, who he should seek advice from. And there's specific criteria that the Imam alayhi salam sets, that you shouldn't seek advice from certain types of people. But when you find a person who has not been sullied by his past associations, who has not selfish interests in mind, and again we said that this is something that's very difficult because every human being, to a certain extent, when asked for advice, will have their interests in mind. It's very difficult to empty yourself from that in certain situations, especially when a situation affects you, right? So like for example, Zuhair Bhai constantly talks to Orlando about me, you know? And my selfish interest is that I need him here. So I will always tell him, no, Orlando is a bad place to go, you know? But then again, that's because I'm very tilted in the way that I look at these things. But this was again a simple example. But anytime there is a personal association with someone or something, it becomes very difficult to separate yourself and give authentic advice at that time. But when we find someone like that, the Imam alayhi salam says we should hold on very close to them, and we should keep them close to us. So that was the past discussion. In this current discussion now, so the Imam then, after talking about counselors, the Imam alayhi salam now here talks about who we should seek, who we should and who we should not select as ministers. In other words, those people who will actually carry out our affairs. So in the past it was about advice, and now it's about who we should select to be within our team. And again, this could work in many different areas of life, but generally whenever there is a leadership position, a leader is only a leader if that leader has a team to work with. Otherwise you're just a person alone, right? And so when you have a team to work with, there are certain criteria that the Imam alayhi salam selects and who you should keep in that circle of yours to help you carry out your affairs. And so the Imam alayhi salam begins and he says, the worst minister for you is he who has been a minister for mischievous persons before you, and who has joined them in their sins, right? So what the Imam alayhi salam here, he's talking about looking at the past of such people. And he's basically describing people who've had a good past as opposed to people who've had more of a sullied past, more of a bad reputation past, more of a bad past, if we can say that, right? And it's important of looking at the past actions of people to determine whether they would be suitable to be your ministers going forward. Now that's really interesting, because if you look at any individual, I would say all of us to a certain degree have a past that we are not exactly proud of, right? And this is not what the Imam alayhi salam is addressing here. You see, most of us have a past that when we look back, we are regretful for our actions. And this is where tawbah comes in, right? This tawbah that came in was that I did some things in my past that I wish I hadn't done. And most of the time, only very select number of people know about this. So for example, your family may know about it, maybe some very close friends who experienced what you went through knew about it. This is not what the Imam alayhi salam is addressing, because if we were to look at that kind of dissection of a past of an individual, then everybody would have a bad past and nobody could be selected. And so this is not what the Imam alayhi salam is addressing. So in certain instances, there are pasts that I have that were private mistakes that I wish I hadn't done, and that's something that no leader or no individual should try and dig up, right? Again, so we're talking about a past. We're not talking about a continuity of action. Rather, it's a past. We've all had pasts that we regret. So that's one case where someone did things in their privacy which they then regret, and they look at that as motivation to keep changing. Then on the other hand, you have other individuals who had a bad past, but they publicized their bad past, right? And unfortunately, we're lucky that our parents and grandparents, they didn't have social media back then, because they're not masoom, you know what I mean? But today we have social media, and so what you find is that people make mistakes because youth will make mistakes. We have to accept that, right? Youth will make mistakes, but today, unfortunately, these mistakes are publicized, right? In social media, in other areas, and you'll find people who don't have shame as far as what they promote, right? So you'll have people, and we've all seen these, people who will go to concerts and will take a selfie at a concert and then will put it on social media. Kids will go out to a bonfire and they'll be surrounded by mixed gatherings and they'll be proud of that, right? I don't think that this is even what the Imam is talking about, because you can chalk that up to youth, right? And the silliness of youth. And most of these people, inshallah, when they grow out of it, they will regret what they have done. And when most of these people will regret what they've done? When they get married. Yeah? When they get married, because when you get married, you want, mashallah, I want a good wife, we say, right? And trust me, the women want a good husband, right? They don't want a husband who did all of these things and then wants a good wife. And so you find that in more instances, this regret really comes about when you find that good wife or you find that good husband, and then there's tension within that marriage that, look, I was good and you weren't, right? And so there's a regret that will eventually come about from there. And this is why it's really important, right? Like, try your best not to publicize your mistakes, and hopefully we've been trained well enough to know what's a mistake and what's not a mistake, right? Because if we don't even have that type of training, then that's a whole different problem of parenting, and lack of parenting, that's a problem. But for the most part, people will make mistakes. Unfortunately, sometimes these mistakes are publicized, and I think, honestly, that as long as a person in the future is regretful of what they have done, these things can be forgiven. They'll not be forgotten because you publicized it, right? And you're going to have to live with the shame of what you have done. But in most instances, inshallah, they will be forgiven, because it is the silliness of youth that many people have. What the Imam alayhi salam is talking about something extra. He's talking about people here who've had a past within an oppressive system, within a system where you were part and parcel of creating an environment where people were unjustly treated. Okay? And when one has a past involved in that type of system, so again, we're talking about more of a leadership position, we're talking about people who oppressed other people. So we're not talking about me just oppressing myself. Me oppressing myself is different, because that's what a sin is, right? Man zalama nafsahu, right? Rabbana zalamtu nafsi, we would say, or zalamna anfusana. These are examples. God constantly mentions that when we sin, we are doing zulm to ourselves. We are oppressing ourselves. But any time when I'm in a system that oppresses other people, this is where the Imam alayhi salam very interestingly draws a clear line, right? The Imam alayhi salam says that people who were part of a circle of mischievous people, and who join them in sins, therefore he should not be your chief person, because they are abettors of sinners and brothers of oppressors. Subhanallah, right? That if you find yourself in a situation where you are part of a team, part of a committee, part of a group, part of any legal system or any leadership system where you are part and parcel of a series of laws that oppressed people, a series of injunctions or actions, a series of laws, I guess you can say, or a series of events that oppressed and hurt other people, the Imam alayhi salam is saying that such people should never be trusted again. Right? And it should never be selected to be part of who you are going to have within your inner circle. And that's really interesting. These people, if they do istighfar and if they do tawbah, Allah would accept their tawbah, right? Insha'Allah. And if they had to make amends with people, they would have to go and make amends with people. And so as far as the haqqullah is concerned, Insha'Allah, Allah would forgive them if a person is truly repentful. Because remember, tawbah is not just about tawbah. Tawbah is about reformation, right? And so you have to reform it. And part of that reformation means a change in lifestyle altogether. Yet, even though Allah may forgive you, Imam says that they should never be trusted to be part of your group, of leadership. And there's probably a few reasons for that, right? But the two that are, I think, the most obvious reasons is if these people are selected to be part of your group again, and they have a history of being part of an oppressive group, the public who you are serving and who recognize that this person was part of the previous oppressive system will not trust your system again. Because they say he selected the same one or she selected the same one. You understand or no? Right? Because they'll see the same people. Right? They'll see the same people in governance, the same people in power. And so they'll say that even though the face has changed, the people behind that face are exactly the same. Right? And so that's something that's really interesting for us to keep in mind, that the legacy of such people, even though they may have repented, they may have reformed, but in the eyes of people, no one knows if they've reformed. No one knows if they've changed. So in the eyes of people, they're always going to be people who are associated with that previous government, and people will lose confidence. It's also very interesting, right? Like if you look at that in a common understanding, like if you notice that whenever you go to a restaurant, sometimes you'll find a sign that says under new management, right? The name of the restaurant's the same, the location is the same, but they want to make sure that you know as a customer that this is new management. Why? Because you don't want to associate the same of what you experienced before, right? Because if you go there and you experience something bad, you won't go there again. And if you're going to go, you're only going to go when you know that there's been a change to that particular system. And so they'll advertise that. Likewise, when it comes to selecting people to be part of your group, it's very important to not bring such people back on, because they will automatically weigh you down. And another reason why is that once a person has been corrupted, the chances of that person being corrupted again are much higher. right? This goes for nearly everything in life. You know what I mean? A person who's sinned is much more likely to repeat the sin than a person who's never sinned before, right? A person who smoked is more likely to smoke than a person who hasn't smoked before, because you've already experienced it. You've already taken that first step that requires that courage to take, or lack of courage, or silliness to take in that particular instance. And so likewise for such people, the Imam alayhi salam says that you need to be very careful. So instead of finding people who have this corrupted past, the Imam alayhi salam says, you need to find good substitutes instead. He says you need to find substitutes for them who will be like them in their views and influence. In other words, that they will want to help you, they'll want to work in this system while not being like them in sins and vices. Okay? So they'll be like people who have an interest to work. Those people had an interest to work. You say, Imam alayhi salam says you need to find new people who will work and who will have an interest in working, but they're not carrying the baggage of those who came before you. And they have never assisted an oppressor in his oppression, or a sinner in his sin. So instead of picking someone who has a tainted past, the Imam alayhi salam says, pick a fresh face. Pick a face who has not been part of any system, and this way the people will deal with you with an entirely clean slate altogether. Ya Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The Imam alayhi salam says such people will give you the least trouble and the best support, and they will be most considerate towards you and the least inclined towards others. There are 4 very beautiful characteristics about selecting someone who doesn't have a bad past. The first, the Imam alayhi salam says, they'll give you least trouble. Why will they give you least trouble? Because they don't have any of the past experiences. So they're not coming with baggages. Na panalka itna kaira. Right? But they did it like this. Baba, it's not what the past did. It's about what the future did. Right? And we're always going to have this problem when we select people within a leadership group who have a past that they're used to. Because no one likes to change. Right? Change is very difficult for people to undergo. The only way true change happens when you have an entirely new face that comes about that is not experienced or sullied with what the past have done. And so because of that, they'll be more flexible, the Imam alayhi salam says, to change. They will also work harder because their intention is pure and solid. They're not working for something else or someone else or for any particular established goal. And so what you will find is that they will work harder because their intention is pure. The third thing the Imam alayhi salam says, they will have more affection and preference for you. If you select someone who's already worked with an oppressive government before, their allegiances are always going to be in question. But if you have someone who is a fresh face, a new face, that person will be loyal to you and will not be loyal to any system or any government that came before that. And then the fourth thing the Imam alayhi salam says, that their loyalty will keep them with you and they will not be inclined towards other people. These 4 benefits are pretty amazing if you think about it, and you can make an impactful change really in any type of governance or in any type of position when you have people or a team who are united on the same goal rather divided because of past allegiances. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so the Imam alayhi salam says, therefore make them your chief companions in privacy as well as in public. So again, these are some very important rules that I'm sure can come in handy in different areas of life. Then in the next section, the Imam alayhi salam talks about or gives us the characteristics of ministers that we should avoid. In the description, in the past description, he talks about characteristics of ministers that we should avoid. In this one, he talks about characteristics that we should look for in people to work with us in a group. The first characteristic the Imam alayhi salam says is that then more preferable amongst them for you should be the one who openly speaks the truth before you. So you have someone who is not afraid to tell the truth. Now even that has levels, you know what I mean? Because sometimes me wanting to say the truth is because there's a certain amount of arrogance that I have to think that I'm always right. Right? This is not what the Imam is talking about here. This is someone who, for example, when they see something wrong, the problem oftentimes is that everybody kind of wants to be a leader. And not everyone can be a leader. There's a leader, and then if we have a leader, the rest of the people need to get in line behind that leader. Right? Otherwise, there's always going to be chaos. And if you think you have the qualities to be a leader, then go and be that leader. But if not, then it's really important that you fall into line behind what that leader is saying. And so when it comes to something that I know is wrong, now this wrong is based on the qualities and the standards set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not based on my own personal preferences, right? And if it's within that, then one of the greatest qualities that you can have of someone who will say that, no, this is not right. You see, because sometimes we'll have yes men or yes women, people who will just agree with you and say yes, 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 and will go along with it. The Imam alayhi salam said that's not a characteristic we need to be looking for. We need to be looking for a characteristic where people are not afraid to speak the truth when it's the time to speak the truth. And the wisdom to know when that is too. I think that's a given here, right? But if you think about it, that takes a ton of bravery, because by default, a leader is going to be someone who commands authority, who commands respect. And generally you'll find, sadly, that people who are part of that system would be too much in awe or afraid to speak up against them. And so what you find in so many instances is people who know what is happening is wrong, yet they will not say anything because they're too afraid of making waves, for whatever reason it is. This happens all the time. We've seen this in so many different examples. But you need someone who has that display of bravery to say that, you know what, this is something that is not right and I will not allow for that to happen. So that's the first characteristic. The second characteristic, the Imam says, and they will support, and who support you least in those of your actions which Allah does not approve of His friends. Yeah? Even though they may be according to your wishes. So I want to do something. So it's not something that I don't have a choice in. I want to do something. But in my goal of doing something, if I have to trample over someone to get there, if I have to hurt someone to get there, if I have to cut a corner to get there, the ministers that we're looking for, the team that we're looking for, will be people who will not support us on those actions that Allah is not happy with. And so the characteristic that we see from that is that these people have, their moral compass is set well, right? That there is a boundary that they're not willing to cross. So again, like we're talking about some lofty characteristics here, right? Where number one, they have bravery in speaking the truth. They're not timid. Number two is that their moral compass is set, right? And when they see something wrong, they're not going to go ahead with it. Imagine how many wars could have been stopped if we actually had ministers like this, right? Most of these wars that we've gotten into over our history have been because of few very select people wanting to go to war. And even though others recognized that this was not the right thing to do, they could not speak up for fear, for whatever reason it was. But the Imam alayhi salam is saying that you need to make sure that you have such people who will bounce ideas off you and who will tell you when you're out of bounds. The third and the fourth characteristic, the Imam says that associate yourself with God-fearing. Now here the word is وَالْسَقْ بِأَهْلِ الْوَرَعِ. Ahlil wara is the people who have wara. What is wara? Wara here is translated as God-fearing. This is from the Najul Balagha website. it's more to do with piety than God-fearing. God-fearing would be a better translation for taqwa, right? But he says that you need to have people who have a high sense of piety, and they are truthful people. They are people who are within their own nature truthful. And so what is wara'? Wara' is piety. But you know, when we talk about piety, often when we talk about piety, we feel that it is an internal characteristic. A characteristic that manifests itself internally. But rather, wara' is a higher characteristic than iman. So when a person has iman, one of the fruits of iman will be piety. And so piety is not an internal characteristic. Rather, piety is a characteristic that is manifested through action. That my actions will display whether I am pious. It's not the clothes I wear, it's not the hat I wear, it's not the tasbih I hold. But rather how I deal with people and how I communicate with people and how trusted I am, that displays the level of piety in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Imam alayhi salam says that you need to surround yourself with people who have this level of piety, who are not going to sin, right? And people will know that they are trusted. And furthermore, he says that they need to have this sidq, a truthfulness by nature. What is truthfulness by nature? Truthfulness by nature is really interesting, right? So, because we've already talked about that they're not afraid to speak the truth. So what we're talking about here is the hal of a person, is the nature of a person. And the nature of a person would be that they imbue sidq, right? And I think that this has different levels, right? When, for example, we say that Sayyidah Fatima alayha afdalu salatu wassalam, salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, is known as Siddiqa, right? Siddiqa, or Imam Ali alayhi salam is known as Siddiq. This is a person who not only speaks the truth, they are completely enveloped in truthfulness, right? And so what that means is that this person not only speaks the truth, their intentions are true, right? Their actions are true. That means that everything is in line, that you will never find a person, for example, whose niyyah is one thing and then their actions are something else and then their speech is something else. Rather, there is a consistency, and this is a person who is Siddiq, who they are truthful through and through. That's known as, the better English translation for that will be voracious. They are voracious in their nature and in their condition. And then the last thing, so again, remember these inshallah for your future. And the Imam alayhi salam says that when you find such people, educate them. Now what does he want us to educate them on? He says educate them on that they should not praise you or please you by reason of an action you did not perform, because an excess of praise produces pride and drives you near haughtiness. It's beautiful. Think about it, right? Really think about it, what the Imam is saying. He's saying, look, when you find such people who have these characteristics, they're going to be truthful, they're not going to be cowards, they're going to stick by you. The Imam ﷺ then begin to train them right away that they don't have to praise you for you to keep them by your side. Because a leader, generally, you will need people who they want to feel empowered. And so what they'll want is people on their side who will just agree with them and will continue to promote what their ideas are. And they will false praise them, even when they haven't done anything, you know. But the Imam ﷺ says you need to educate them, that they don't need to praise you. They don't need to praise you for especially things that you haven't done, but then you can extrapolate that from Islamic thinking and Islamic teachings, that one should never surround themselves with people who will praise them, right? Because that praise is very intoxicating. I think I've said this like so many times, right? And I honestly mean this, and sometimes people don't like when I say this, but I'm actually, I'm grateful that my style of lecturing doesn't produce wahwas. Honestly. because I feel that those wahwas are, which are a form of praise, right? Like mashallah, wahwa, right? And that is intoxicating, right? That is literally intoxicating, because now you will, instead of reciting what you are reciting to get that praise, right? Now, of course, the musakba naras are good once in a while, that's something else. But the wahwas and these type of things for a person like me would be problematic, and because it's in the same line. One of the most beautiful traditions that I've memorized from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, it says, "Iyakum wal madh, yeah, فَإِنَّهُ الذَّبْحُ مَنْ مَدَحَكْ ذَبَحَكْ." Yeah, one who praises you slaughters you at the same time, because now you lose focus of what you want to do. And so this is something that's very important, right? That we don't surround ourselves with people who are going to elevate things that are nothing, right? But to just make us feel good about who we are. You look at all of these characteristics, and you see how difficult it is to surround yourself with good people, right? And again, when you look at our history, you find that every Nabi who came and every Wali who came only had a few people around them who were that loyal, right? You look at Nabi Nuh, right? You go to Nabi Nuh. Today we had a seminar, all-day seminar, but it was quite interesting. I'll talk about it in a few weeks, inshallah, once I have a chance to wrap my head around the thoughts that came out of it. But that it was highlighted the tablighi efforts of Nabi Nuh. Nabi Nuh alayhi salam preached for over 950 years, and we are told that within that time only 80 people accepted his message. Think about that. That's a person every 12 years accepted his message. Subhanallah, right? You look at the Prophet, even our Prophet, right? How many were in Makkah? Medina was different, but how many were in Makkah? You look at Imam Ali, how many were with Imam Ali? You look in Karbala, how many were in Karbala? You look at what our 12th Imam wants. How many does our 12th Imam want? Man, the ability to find such people is rare. And so when we look at these things, sure, we can look at it from a perspective of a leader, but we are, by our aqidah, we need to train ourselves to be servants, right? We need to train ourselves to be followers. And so when we look at these characteristics, this is what the Imam is going to be looking for. People like this, people who are brave and not afraid to speak the truth and not afraid to say that when something doesn't suit you, right? Because eventually you're going to be assigned people to look after. And again, so we come to Karbala, right? That when we look at this beautiful legacy of Imam alayhi salam, that we find that there were such few people who were by the side of the Imam alayhi salam in that state. The story is narrated by Khutaba. It's a beautiful story. And it said that, there was once a man who kept saying the way we say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, that I wish we were there with you, O Aba Abdullah. We recite that in ziyarah all the time, It's a powerful statement. Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, right? And so there was a man who believed in this. And again, this is a story that Khutaba state from the Manabir. And so one day such a person was reciting this, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. And then at night he went to sleep, and in his dream he saw Imam al-Hussein. Yeah? And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, you have always wished that you were with me. So come with me, let's go. Yeah? We are going now, right? And as the Imam alayhi salam is talking to him, it is the land of Karbala, it is the day of Ashura, and the Imam said that you have always wished to be here. Yeah? And at that moment an arrow is shot. And as the Imam is looking at this arrow and the Imam is talking to him, his mind is on that arrow, and at the last moment he moves and the arrow hits Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He says, where were you? He said, you've been asking for this your whole life. Today is your opportunity. When you look at what Hussein alayhi salam had, that is why we have always been told there are no companions like the companions of Aba Abdullah. Yeah? Because these people gave everything. They knew what they were walking into. When you look at the day of Ashura, we are told that one by one, The companions went and they sacrificed their lives. There came a day or came a time on the day of Ashura when a companion by the name of Abu Thumama as-Saydawi, he comes to Abu Abdullah and he says, Mawla, it seems like to me that the time of Dhuhr has set in. The Imam alayhi salam looks towards the sky and he says, Ya Aba Thamama, may Allah raise you on the day of judgment amongst those who establish their salah. He says, I would love to recite another prayer behind you. As the Imam alayhi salam and the companions gathered, the enemies would not stop firing arrows at them. This was the Muslimin on the other side. It is said two companions, Zuhair ibn Qayn and Sa'id ibn Abdullah, they said, Ya ibn Rasulillah, we will pray salah behind your grandfather in Jannah. Let us protect you from the arrows that are showering upon you. It is said as they stood in front of the Imam and the companions, arrows were coming at them. Arrows were coming at them. And they would put their bodies in defense of the arrows as they would rain down upon them. It is said when the Imam finished that 2 rakat salah, by the sheer number of arrows that landed on the body of Sa'id bin Abdullah, he fell over from those arrows. There were 13 arrows that had struck his body. And the first thing that he says to the Imam, he says, Mawla, have I been loyal to you? Allah. Have I been loyal to you? This is what it means to say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, to be loyal to our Imam of our time in that way. فَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of our parents and loved ones. We ask Him that for those who are going through difficulty, that He end their difficulty. For those that have asked us to remember them in our prayers, Ya Allah, please accept their hajat. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم والحمد لله رب العالمين. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.